Most people believe love reveals itself loudly through confessions, grand gestures, or dramatic moments that leave no room for doubt. But the truth is far more unsettling. The deepest emotions rarely announce themselves. They leak. They seep through cracks in behavior, through pauses, through things people do without realizing they are doing them at all. And if you've ever felt that strange pull around someone, a subtle shift in the air, a quiet intensity you can't logically explain, then you're already standing at the edge of the unconscious, exactly where Carl Jung believed the truth begins to speak. Jung taught us something most people are never trained to notice. Words are often lies we tell ourselves, but the unconscious never negotiates. It expresses itself through the body, through instinct, through micro-movements that escape control. When someone feels more for you than they consciously allow themselves to admit, their psyche begins to betray them in ways they cannot manage. And if you know how to observe not desperately, not anxiously, but with awareness, you will see the signs long before any confession arrives. One of the first places the unconscious reveals itself is through the eyes, not through dramatic staring, but through an almost involuntary lingering. When someone feels deeply drawn to you, their gaze doesn't simply rest on your face, it searches, it studies. It pauses longer than social norms require, as if something inside them is trying to recognize something ancient within you. Jung described the eyes as gateways, mirrors through which the unconscious peers outward. That's why sustained eye contact feels different from ordinary attention. It creates a subtle tension, a quiet intimacy that doesn't need words. And when you notice their pupils subtly expanding while they're near you, understand this: that reaction bypasses logic entirely. It is biological, automatic, a response to desire that cannot be rehearsed or faked. Yet, attraction doesn't stop at vision. The unconscious seeks proximity long before the mind invents excuses. Someone who feels deeply connected to you will begin orbiting your physical space without realizing it. They'll appear where you didn't expect them. They'll invent reasons to start conversations that don't actually need to happen. They may brush your arm, lean closer than necessary, or linger when others would naturally step back. These are not accidents. According to Jungian psychology, the psyche is always trying to reduce distance between what it longs for and what it fears losing. Physical closeness becomes a symbolic attempt at emotional union. What makes this even more revealing is how attuned they become to your emotional shifts. You might not say a word, but they notice. A change in your tone, a hesitation, a quiet withdrawal. Jung believed empathy is not learned, it is activated. When someone truly cares, their unconscious locks onto your emotional state as if it were their own. They feel unsettled when you are unsettled. They soften when you soften. And when you're struggling, they don't offer rehearsed comfort. They respond instinctively, sometimes awkwardly, but sincerely, because their concern comes from below the surface, not from obligation. Then something even stranger begins to happen. Coincidences multiply. You discover overlapping interests you never discussed. You think the same thought at the same time. You laugh at the same things without explanation. Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that reveal an underlying psychic connection. These moments create a sense of quiet inevitability, as though something invisible has been aligning long before you were aware of it. When someone repeatedly reacts with surprise at how much you share in common, what they're really sensing is resonance, two inner worlds vibrating at a similar frequency. The body, however, is where the unconscious speaks most honestly. Someone who feels safe and drawn to you will unconsciously open themselves physically. Their posture softens. Their torso faces you. Their movements slow. They lean in without realizing it. And sometimes, without any deliberate intention, they begin to mirror you, crossing their legs when you do, adjusting their posture to match yours, syncing their rhythm with your own. This unconscious mirroring is not mimicry, it's alignment, a non-verbal declaration that their nervous system feels at home with yours. As this connection deepens, listening itself transforms. They don't wait for their turn to speak, they don't scan the room. Their attention rests fully with you, as though your words carry weight beyond their literal meaning. Jung believed that when someone unconsciously perceives another as an archetypal figure, an animus or anima, the psyche responds with recognition, not curiosity. Time begins to feel different. Silence stops feeling awkward. presence becomes enough. And then comes vulnerability, perhaps the most dangerous signal of all, when someone begins to share their fears, their past wounds, the parts of themselves they usually protect, understand what is happening beneath the surface. Jung taught that the psyche only exposes its shadow where it senses safety and transformation. If someone opens themselves to you in this way, they are not simply trusting you, they are unconsciously inviting you into their inner world. Support becomes another silent confession. When they celebrate your growth, encourage your ambitions, and protect your becoming, rather than competing with it, they are responding to something Jung called individuation, the recognition of another soul's unfolding. Your success doesn't threaten them, it nourishes them. That is not admiration. That is connection. Yet paradoxically, deep emotion does not always look calm. Sometimes it looks like discomfort, nervousness, inconsistency, avoidance. One day they're close, the next they retreat. Jung warned that what is repressed often appears ambivalent. When desire collides with fear, the unconscious hesitates. So don't confuse emotional clumsiness with indifference. Sometimes the soul stumbles when it doesn't yet know how to hold what it feels. And if this person has begun appearing in your dreams, take that seriously. Jung believed dreams are direct messages from the unconscious, unfiltered by social masks. When someone enters your dreamscape repeatedly, they occupy psychic territory. They matter in ways the mind has not yet articulated. There are also bodily reactions that defy explanation, a calm that settles when they're near, a subtle increase in energy, a feeling of being more alive in their presence. These are psychosomatic responses, signals that two nervous systems are quietly attuning to one another. It's not fantasy, it's resonance. True interest does not announce itself loudly. It hides in pauses, in lingering goodbyes, in unnecessary questions, in smiles that surface without reason. These gestures are not calculated. They are orchestrated by the unconscious, the same place where the most enduring connections are formed. And this is only the beginning of what Jung's insights reveal. There is more beneath the surface, far more than most people ever notice, and what comes next will take you even deeper into the hidden language of the soul. There are moments when language collapses, when words no longer carry what the soul is trying to express. Jung believed that when consciousness reaches its limit, the unconscious steps forward and begins to speak through symbols, gestures, and subtle disturbances in the body. This is why some of the clearest signs of deep emotional interest appear precisely where logic fails. Watch carefully how this person behaves when they are near you. Do their hands betray a restlessness they don't normally have? Do they adjust their clothing, touch their neck, smooth their hair, or fidget with objects for no apparent reason? These movements are not random. They are signs of internal tension, the psyche attempting to regulate an emotion that has grown too powerful to remain hidden. The unconscious is struggling to maintain balance between desire and self-control. Even speech itself begins to fracture. Words come out awkwardly. Sentences trail off. Laughter appears at odd moments. Contradictions slip into conversation. This is not simple nervousness. According to Jung, when the conscious mind cannot fully integrate what the unconscious is feeling, expression becomes distorted. What you are witnessing is not confusion, it is emotional overflow. The truth is pressing upward faster than it can be managed. Then there is memory. Most people underestimate how revealing memory truly is. When someone remembers small, seemingly insignificant details about you, something you mentioned once in passing, a preference you barely acknowledged, a story you assumed was forgotten, that is not courtesy. That is selective attention. Jung believed attention is a form of psychic energy. We remember what the unconscious deems valuable. When your details are preserved without effort, it means you occupy space in their inner world. And sometimes, this connection becomes almost anticipatory. They offer you warmth before you feel cold. Ask if you've eaten before hunger reaches your lips. Reach out just as you were thinking of them. This isn't coincidence, nor is it mysticism. Jung spoke of emotional fields, subtle psychological attunements, where one person senses another beyond conscious awareness. When someone anticipates your needs, it's because they are already emotionally aligned with you. You may also notice something else quietly unfolding: resonance. Their interests begin to shift. Music you love appears on their playlists. Books aligned with your ideas find their way into their hands. quotes that echo your worldview surface in their conversations. Jung described this as psychic transference, a blending of inner symbols between two individuals. Without realizing it, they begin carrying pieces of you within their psyche. And then there is the reaction they cannot disguise when someone else shows interest in you. They may say nothing, they may even smile, but their body tells another story. Their posture stiffens, their energy withdraws, their voice flattens or tightens. Jung would call this the emergence of the shadow, the unconscious response that reveals what the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge. Subtle jealousy, restrained discomfort, a quiet territorial impulse, these are not flaws. They are evidence of emotional investment struggling to remain hidden. One of the most overlooked signs of all is shared silence. Not the awkward silence of uncertainty, but the comfortable silence of presence. Jung believed the soul recognizes familiarity without explanation. If you can sit together without speaking and feel no pressure to fill the space, that is intimacy at its most honest. Silence becomes a language, one that says, "I don't need to perform for you." And if they have shown you their broken places, their regrets, their mistakes, their unresolved pain, understand the weight of that gesture. Jung taught that we reveal our shadow only to those we unconsciously perceive as catalysts for transformation. When someone entrusts you with what they usually hide, it means they see you as safe, stabilizing, and significant. Yet the unconscious does not only reveal itself in presence, sometimes it speaks louder in absence. Jung observed that when something truly matters to us, its absence disturbs our inner equilibrium. If you notice that this person becomes restless when you're gone, quieter with others, more reflective, and then visibly lighter when you return, that emotional shift is not nostalgia, it is recognition. Their psyche registers you as a missing piece. You may also find that they begin echoing you not intentionally, but instinctively. Your expressions slip into their speech. Your tone appears in their voice. Your way of framing ideas quietly integrates into their thinking. Jung described this as symbolic identification, a process where the unconscious absorbs what it feels connected to. It is intimacy without intention. In some cases, this connection awakens creativity. They begin writing, creating, expressing themselves in new ways without understanding why. Jung believed creativity is the unconscious seeking release. When someone enters our life and stirs dormant parts of the psyche, expression becomes inevitable. If your presence coincides with their creative awakening, you are touching something deep. But depth does not always rush forward. Sometimes it pauses. You may notice moments where they pull back, observe quietly, or seem distant, not cold, but contemplative. Jung explained that when the unconscious encounters something archetypal or transformative, it may respond with stillness rather than action. The psyche is processing. If they watch you with quiet intensity, it's because something inside them is trying to understand what you represent. As this bond strengthens, physical spaces begin to shift. They invite you into places that matter: their home, their favorite spots, their personal environments. Jung believed our surroundings are extensions of our psyche. To share space is to share self. When someone opens their world to you, they are opening their inner landscape as well. There is also the tension that appears before seeing you: nervous preparation, sudden hesitation, even avoidance. Jung said the soul trembles before what it truly desires. Sometimes attraction first manifests as fear of vulnerability, of exposure, of loss of control. If they struggle internally before meeting you, it's because you carry emotional weight. And pay attention to goodbyes. They linger, steps slow, words stretch, glances return. Jung believed the soul seeks permanence where it feels safe. When someone resists leaving, even unconsciously, it is because their psyche has found refuge. Finally, there are those moments too precise to ignore. You think of them, they appear. You dream of them, they reach out. You speak of something, it reappears elsewhere. Jung called these synchronicities signs of an invisible order, an underlying connection that transcends rational explanation. These are not accidents, they are patterns. The unconscious never shouts, it whispers, it leaves trails, and if you know how to listen, you will hear what has been trying to reach you all along. At a certain depth, attraction stops behaving like attraction and begins to look like transformation. Jung believed that when two psyches resonate strongly enough, the connection no longer stays confined to interaction. it reshapes perception itself. This is why, at some point, you may notice that your presence alters how this person experiences the world. There is a quiet shift in their awareness. They become more reflective, more careful with words, less reactive, not because they are restraining themselves, but because something in them is reorganizing. Jung described this as the psyche, responding to an archetypal encounter when someone enters our life, carrying symbolic meaning. The unconscious slows everything down, as if saying, "Pay attention, this matters." You may notice that when they speak to you, they choose words more deliberately, even hesitantly. They are not trying to impress you, they are trying not to betray themselves. Because when emotion runs deep, language becomes dangerous. One wrong sentence could reveal too much, and the unconscious knows it. There is also a particular kind of attentiveness that emerges not curiosity, but concern. They don't just ask how you are, they register how you arrive. They sense when your energy is different before you mention it. Jung believed that emotional attunement is the psyche extending itself beyond the boundaries of the individual. When someone feels you before you speak, it means your emotional state has become relevant to their internal balance. As time passes, you may notice that they begin to hold space for you instinctively. They adjust their pace to yours. They wait without impatience. They allow silences to breathe. Jung taught that patience is not politeness. It is reverence. When someone slows down for you, it is because your presence has weight. And then there are moments of protection, subtle, understated, but unmistakable. They position themselves closer in unfamiliar environments. They intervene gently when something makes you uncomfortable. They defend you not loudly, but decisively. Jung believed that when the unconscious perceives someone as part of its psychic territory, protective instincts emerge naturally, without conscious planning. Yet one of the most revealing signs remains largely invisible: internal conflict. When someone feels deeply for you, they often wrestle with it. They question themselves. They retreat, then return. They oscillate between courage and hesitation. Jung warned that powerful emotions activate the shadow fears of loss, rejection, exposure. If you sense this tension within them, it does not mean instability, it means significance. You may also observe that they treat you differently from others, even when they try not to. Their tone softens, their humor changes, their boundaries become more flexible. Jung believed differentiation is unconscious recognition. When someone instinctively separates you from the rest of the world, it is because you occupy a distinct psychic category. Another sign appears in how they remember your emotional history. Not just events, but patterns. They remember what hurts you, what excites you, what drains you. Jung believed memory tied to emotion is encoded more deeply than factual memory. When someone remembers how you feel, it means your inner life matters to them. There is also the strange phenomenon of emotional timing. They reach out when you are low, they appear when you need grounding. Jung would say this is not coincidence but unconscious alignment, two emotional rhythms subtly synchronizing. When someone enters your life at moments that feel strangely precise, it often means your paths are intersecting at a deeper psychological level. As the connection deepens, you may notice something paradoxical. They begin encouraging your independence. They don't cling, they don't control, they want you whole, not dependent. Jung believed genuine connection supports individuation, the becoming of the self. When someone supports your growth, even if it means risking distance, they are acting from depth, not insecurity. There are also moments when their admiration surfaces in unexpected ways. They quote you, reference your ideas, defend your perspective even when you are not present. Jung described this as internalization, when someone integrates another's values into their own psychological framework. It is one of the quietest forms of devotion. And then there is the way they react to your vulnerability. They don't rush to fix you. They don't dismiss your pain. They remain present. Jung believed presence is the most healing force the psyche can offer. If someone can sit with your discomfort without fleeing, they are emotionally invested beyond surface-level interest. Sometimes, this connection expresses itself through dreams not just yours, but theirs. They may mention dreaming about you casually, without understanding the weight of what they're saying. Jung saw dreams as communications from the unconscious, revealing what the waking mind avoids. When you appear in their dreams, You are already part of their inner narrative. You may also notice that they seek your opinion more than others, not because you have all the answers, but because your perspective feels grounding to them. Jung believed we seek mirrors that help us see ourselves more clearly. When someone values your insight instinctively, it means you help orient their inner compass. And there is something else, something many people misinterpret. Sometimes deep interest manifests as restraint. They don't cross boundaries, they don't rush intimacy, they wait. Jung taught that the unconscious respects what it perceives as sacred. When someone moves carefully with you, it is not hesitation, it is reverence. As this bond continues, the world around you seems to thin out when you're together. Distractions fade, time compresses or stretches. Jung believed altered time perception is a sign of deep psychological engagement. When presence becomes immersive, the psyche is fully engaged. And still, nothing may be said explicitly. No declarations, no confessions, because some connections exist first in silence. Jung wrote that the unconscious speaks in symbols long before it speaks in words. And if you have felt all of this, the tension, the resonance, the quiet gravity, then something real is unfolding, whether it has been named or not. What remains is the most delicate part of all the threshold, where the unconscious edges toward revelation. And that is where the final signs begin to surface. At the deepest level, truth no longer needs proof. Jung believed that when the unconscious has gathered enough signals, it stops asking questions and begins to know. This is why, after witnessing all these subtle signs, there comes a moment when certainty doesn't arrive as a thought, it arrives as a feeling, a quiet knowing that settles in your body, long before your mind tries to explain it away. You begin to sense it in what is withheld rather than what is offered, in the message they type and delete, in the confession that almost escapes their lips but doesn't, in the glance that drops just before it becomes too revealing. Jung taught that the unconscious often expresses itself through restraint, because what is most valuable is also what feels most dangerous to expose. When someone holds back, not out of indifference but out of fear of revelation, it is often because the emotion carries real weight. There is also a shift in energy that cannot be faked. When they are with you, something in them softens, their defenses lower, their usual persona loosens its grip. Jung believed we wear masks to survive the world, but those masks grow heavy in the presence of someone who sees beyond them. If you notice that they seem more themselves around you, quieter, more genuine, less performative, that is not coincidence. That is psychological safety. And sometimes, the strongest sign is how little they need to prove. They don't overwhelm you with attention, they don't demand reassurance, they don't rush outcomes. Instead, they stay, they remain consistent. Jung believed consistency is one of the rarest indicators of true emotional investment. Anyone can perform intensity. Very few can sustain presence. You may also notice how your intuition reacts to them. Not anxiety, not confusion, but a subtle calm mixed with alertness. Jung emphasized intuition as a direct channel of unconscious perception. If something in you feels both grounded and awake when they are near, pay attention. Your psyche is registering alignment. And then there are the moments when the connection reveals itself through absence once again. When you're not together, something lingers. A thought, a feeling, a sense that the conversation hasn't really ended. Jung wrote that when someone occupies psychic space, they remain present even when physically gone. If you carry each other silently through your days, something meaningful has already been established. At this stage, labels become secondary. Whether or not anything has been spoken aloud no longer matters as much as what has been felt. Jung believed the unconscious forms bonds long before society names them, and many of the most transformative connections begin not with declarations, but with recognition. Recognition that this person affects you differently. Recognition that time behaves strangely around them. Recognition that your inner world responds to their presence in ways you cannot fully explain and no longer feel the need to. Because the truth is this, when someone feels deeply for you, you don't need them to say it right away. Their unconscious will speak for them, through their eyes, their body, their silences, their contradictions, their care, their restraint, their presence. And if you have learned to listen beyond words, you already understand what is being communicated. Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. If this reflection stirred something within you, a memory, a face, a quiet certainty, trust that response. The unconscious does not react without reason. And before you rush to conclusions or outcomes, pause. Let awareness mature into wisdom. Not every connection needs to be forced into form. Some exist to awaken you, to teach you how deeply you can feel, how subtly you can perceive, how attuned you can become to the invisible language of the soul. If someone came to mind while listening to this, hold that gently. You don't need to act immediately. Sometimes understanding is the first transformation. And if these insights resonated with you, if you felt seen or understood in ways words rarely allow, consider staying with us a little longer. Share this reflection with someone who might need it, not as an answer, but as an invitation to listen more closely to themselves. And if you feel called to explore more about the hidden language of the unconscious, the quiet truths of human connection, and the depth Carl Jung left for those willing to look beneath the surface, you're welcome here. This is HeartSync X, a space for those who no longer settle for the obvious, who sense that what truly matters often speaks in silence. Because what you're feeling is not random, it's not imagination, and it's not coincidence. It's a signal. And now you know how to listen.